My name is Julie Giordano. I'm your county executive. To my left is Bunky Luffman, the Director of Administration, and to my right is Pam Oland, our Director of Finance. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. So how this is going to work is we are going to go through this brief PowerPoint presentation as the proposed operating budget, and then from there, if you here in the audience have any questions or concerns, comments, we invite you to come up to the microphone. Please state your name, where you're located in the county, and any concerns that you may have. We look forward to hearing from you. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our Director of Finance, Pam Oland.
Good evening. So we typically start this with kind of our results from before. This chart basically shows from fiscal year 22, which is the last fiscal year that ended, how we get our revenue. And 42% of it comes from local property tax. That includes both real and personal property tax. And 39% is local income tax. So 81% of our revenue source is from two areas. Everything else is basically 7% or less that make up the budget as to where we get our funds from. The third biggest is actually disparity grant from the state of Maryland at 7%. We, in our audit for fiscal year 22, about $14 million is spent on general government. Public safety is $42 million, almost 42.1, and that is primarily the Sheriff's Office as well as the Department of Corrections. About 8.7 is Public Works. 56.9 million is education, and that is the local, or is the Board of Education as well as Warwick, and a couple, I think the library also rolls up under education as well. So a couple other small departments for the county. 2.5 is miscellaneous, and then 13.3 is our debt service, and that 13.3 covers the debt service for both the Board of Education as well as for the general government. This is a chart that shows just real property tax, and which is the blue line, and then which is real property tax is your tax on your home and your assessed value of your home, while the green line is income tax. In the past, income tax has been significantly less than our real property tax, and over the last several years that dynamic has switched, and our income tax is now by itself larger than our real property tax, versus now when you again add on the personal property tax for corporations, that number does get larger than the income tax. The tax, this one's a little harder to see, but the column on the left describes the current tax rate based on assessable base. Our current tax rate is 0.9070. Based on the revenue cap. The tax rate to stay at 2% for fiscal year 24 will actually have to go down for the county because of the increased assessed value, and that will go down to 88.8855. So to only grow our revenue by 2% on the income tax or on the real property tax, we will have to decrease our tax rate for the next fiscal year. There's some large things looming. Some of it has some impact on this year, the 24 budget. Some of it is stuff that we're still working through. The Kerwin Commission for the Maryland Education Reform, some of that is flowing through this year's budget. Additionally, we implemented a comprehensive salary survey in fiscal 23, and we need to continue to look at the salaries for our employees across the board. Rural broadband is still an issue, as well as an implementation of a water and sewer plan. And then stormwater management issues will impact the county as a whole. For our 24 budget, like everyone's personal expenses, inflationary impacts impact our budget as well. Every time something goes up for electric and water and sewer, those impact us because we have those same costs as well as fuel costs. We also have to then look at the costs associated with maintaining our salary structure as well as funding major capital projects, which have increased costs as well. The main capital projects that we are looking at funding for fiscal year '24 include the continuing for the Mardella Middle High School renovation expansion, roofs at Y High and Parkside, and a planning study for Fruitland Primary, sorry, I acted like it was going to continue on. And then additionally, the other major project, there's a lot of other projects within the county, but the biggest funding is going to go to airport improvements, including continuing the runway extension to continue to attract and retain the air service that we have. Specific requests that we have had from departments, we have started meetings with each department to talk about what they need for the next fiscal year. That includes fuel and utility costs going up, as I discussed. The sheriff's office will be in the second year of their contract, and there will be, or third year. I've lost track. Third year of their contract, sorry. So they will get step increases per their contract, and then we will need to look at a COLA for all non-FOP employees. Additionally, the Police Accountability Act, there's corresponding implementation costs. We have created the necessary boards, but there's costs associated with having those boards and having any meetings associated with those. The corrections, last year the state changed some laws as to what we have to provide to inmates, and those medical costs continue to increase. And the volunteer fire and EMS companies are requesting increases to their annual funding. This last slide basically shows the county's contributions to the Board of Education. The green is what we have funded for what everybody kind of refers to as maintenance of effort. And then the blue is our principal payments, and the green is interest for debt we have acquired for the Board of Education. One thing to note is the fiscal '24 number is still up in the air. So a lot of times if you look back at old presentations, you would have a column for a proposed fiscal '24. The problem is that number is still fluctuating between what the state has potentially provided us, but there's also legislation in place that could, or working through, not in place yet, working through that could change that number. So at this point in time, we did not place that on here because I don't know exactly what number it will be, and we will get that number prior to issuing the budget. At this point, we open this up to public comments. If you could, as the executive stated, please state your name, where you're from, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Micah Stauffer, Superintendent of Schools for Wicomico County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to recognize those in the audience from our board. I appreciate all of you being here as well. Just want to express my thanks to the county executive for including full funding for the 4 main priorities in our capital budget for FY24. In addition, as we look at maintenance of effort for next year, due to the 3-year enrollment average calculation that was used previously and the maintenance of effort formula now, even though our enrollment has increased pretty significantly, we are still expecting flat funding with maintenance of effort for next year, in accordance with how legislation is currently. We know that the county executive has placed education as a priority for our county, and we appreciate that. So our ask is simply to account for the inflation that we have experienced over this past year. Flat funding would actually be a decrease in our funding due to inflation when we're looking at rising fuel and utility prices, increases in general liability and property insurances, increases in materials and supplies for our classrooms, as well as increases in the fuel prices in other areas. We've also requested for 5 additional SROs, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to make plans to bring that to fruition next year. So with that, we have put in a request for about $1.4 million over maintenance of effort to account for these cost increases. We also know that the maintenance of effort calculations being reviewed, so there's pending legislation, but our hope is that the county executive would put in a request for full funding for not only our capital funding requests, but also our operating budget requests as well, so that we can continue to improve our school systems and meet the needs that we know we have. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Oh, good evening. My name's Audrey Orr, and I live just around the corner from here. So I actually am on the Board of Trustees, Wicomico Public Library, currently serving as chair. But I'm here tonight as a citizen of Wicomico County and a volunteer at the library. Certainly any statistics I'm sure our Executive Director, Seth Hirschberger, has already provided to you. I know you're familiar with the outreach efforts the library's made with like the bookmobile, the mobile learning lab, our most recent book lockers, so that we try and reach those areas of the county that are not easily, where citizens can't easily come into town. But as a volunteer, and I was at our bookstore volunteering just this past Saturday, and as I went to the door just before we opened at 10 o'clock, there were 12 to 20 people standing outside waiting for the door of the library to open. Some who apparently were homeless, some seniors, some children. You could always tell when there's a special program going on at the library because gaggles of children show up, and that's always fun to see them running ahead of their parents. They far outdistance their parents if there's something fun going on, especially if there are animals involved. Also, you'll see a number, it surprised me, I think you're probably familiar with one of the library's programs called Project Read. Most of the participants in Project Read are people with cognitive or physical disabilities. And that's a very special program that the library's been offering for years now. And as a volunteer there, I really just want to, and as a citizen of Wicomico County, I just hope that you can, as you think through the hard decisions that I know are involved with the operating budget, I understand that. But as you think those through concerning the upcoming year, please remember to consider these most vulnerable citizens of Wicomico County that the library serves. Couldn't do without your funding. So thank you very much, and thank you for the support you've given us in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to follow up with what Audrey commented on. My name is Michelle Schleoffer, and I'm on the Board of Trustees for the Wicomico County Public Library as well. And I'm also a resident of Wicomico County. And I want to also, again, as Audrey said, just put in really strong support for our library. I'm going to make a few additional remarks regarding the library services. I think it's really important to recognize that the library serves a vital function in serving all of the citizens and residents of Wicomico County, and oftentimes filling the gap of other services that they're not receiving elsewhere. So our county library, for instance, offers homework help. It offers birth through 5 school readiness type programming. It offers free cultural events. It offers a variety of services through the bookmobile and the mobile learning lab to include STEM educational resources. And in those facilities, they've also offered pro bono lawyer services. So in addition to all of the resources that Audrey mentioned, our library serves a really vital function in supplementing other aspects of the county and improving the quality of life of citizens in our county. For that reason, I do want to request that the budget request sent in by our executive director is fully funded. In addition, a salary study indicated that our librarians, our staff is underpaid in comparison to staff at other library facilities on the shore. And this negatively impacts our ability to hire the best staff, to retain those staff, and to offer services to meet the needs of our citizens. So I do want to, again, thank you for your library support, and just second what Audrey said regarding a fully funding of the library request. Thank you.
Seth, you sent the troops tonight, didn't you? I see you.
Any other public comments?
All right. Well, we thank you all for coming, and we'll definitely take into consideration the comments that were stated. If for some reason you think of something, please feel free to email me. But I do suggest that you talk to your county councilman. They're ready and willing, or county councilwoman, they are ready and willing to help you as well. So if there's anything that you think of, please feel free to contact us, and we'll take it into consideration. So thank you all for coming this evening, and I think that wraps up the presentation. So thank you all.